Hi, everybody. August 3rd, 2025. It is day 1827 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room on Fort Bliss and his life was taken from him because he was a whistleblower against the criminal trafficking along our El Paso borderland that went into our military base, Fort Bliss. Yes, and it's been going on for a long time because don't forget that White Sands missile range is under the authority of Fort Bliss and was bordering um, the Epstein ranch called, uh, what was it called? Zorro Ranch. Zorro Ranch. So it is after midnight. It is a late night live stream. And thank you so much for coming on and keeping up with all of this because every day we're getting so much information coming in. Um, President Trump is working so hard, so fast. Um, so what I want to talk about, especially in El Paso, especially on Fort Bliss, he is the commander in chief. He's also the chief magistrate, the chief law enforcer. So he has a a big chair with a gavel and of course a whole military. So he has approved his administration $1.2 billion for a migrant, uh, the criminal illegal migrant detention camp on Fort Bliss. Now, uh, the Bidens had a an unaccompanied minors emergency intake center on Fort Bliss that could sleep 10,000. That was at the taxpayers' expense. And now again, $1.2 billion for the deportation of criminal, illegal, undocumented migrants. Um, but when you look at the price tag, 1.2 billion, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Um, wow. Uh, and we had to take a deep dive into that. We had to research what was going on with that because the contract is out of Virginia. The contract for that is out of Virginia. And as we know more and more with our sources, we will absolutely let you know. But what we are gathering from the information we have received so far, it has a big dual purpose, a really big dual purpose. It is setting a federal stage, um, a Trump administration accountability power play stage there on 60 acres on Fort Bliss um, to hold the cartel accountable. That is, and the enablers, the cartel enablers for the criminal trafficking. Um, because with ICE and that, this is what it can be. This is what it can be. That's not what is being released in the news, but $1.2 billion and 60 acres with ICE and DOD being in charge and taking away the jurisdiction, taking away the ability to infiltrate the legal process, the investigations, the because we have documented, we meaning the uh, Richard Halliday. Find Richard Halliday. Team Find Richard Halliday Facebook page. And others. We're on X and we're on TikTok and we're on Rumble and we're on um, YouTube and all that. We have documented continuously and extensively with receipts, right? Uh, hard evidence confirming that the institutions in El Paso and even on Fort Bliss, now we're under the Trump administration, he's the commander in chief. So, but still, there is infiltration by cartel tied criminal trafficking network enablers, participants, you name it, they are there. And not only that, they have sabotaged the institutions. For example, the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court sits 5 judges. Each one of those judges right now are not authorized, illegal. They're not even judges. They're illegal because that court has full jurisdiction, and under the Texas Constitution, those positions must be placed by those must be seated by those that have been elected by the people of El Paso, because that court has such huge power. It has such a big jurisdiction that the Texas Constitution says, hold on. When you have full jurisdiction, like that El Paso Magistrate Court does, the criminal law magistrate court, then the people must elect those that sit on those benches. Those judges must be elected judges. And right now they're not. And so everything they do um, is is bunk is messed up, right? Is messed up. It's illegal. It's not justice because it doesn't follow the laws, the requirements of the law. You can't just become president because you want. You have to be elected, right? You can't just sit on those courts because someone appointed you. That's not what the law says. It doesn't allow for that. They must be elected. So that's really huge. Then, of course, we have the illegal medical examiner, chief medical examiner, who is tied to, um, oh gosh, it's late. It's late. Purchase funeral homes and the cross border funeral fraud, body fraud, body tr- remains trafficking, corpse trafficking, what do you want to call it, um, going on there. That then you have the FBI field office in El Paso that has been infiltrated. You have compromised Jesus Eddie Neto Jr. You have compromised George Toros, whose wife is Dr. Melissa Mendez in the Texas Tech University Health Science Center, which that organization is the main funder of El Paso Matters, Bob Moore. Okay. And the ties there are, I mean, it's so compromised because she works with um, Alexis Mayela, the sister in law of the shooter in the Walmart mass shooting case. So, it is wherever you look, it's compromised. Then you have the DA's office where you didn't have just one, but now two in a row of usurpers, um, DAs that have botched their installment by not following the law, by not signing the anti-bribe statement of officer before taking their oath of office because they're compromised. They can't do it legally. And so then they try to sign it afterwards, which it makes it, illegal, makes it void. And then they tamper with timestamps, Mr. 2028 timestamp Montoya, Beno Montoya, not even using his right name. I mean, he's botched everything, okay? James Montoya has botched everything. And so you don't even have a legitimate DA sitting in the prosecutor's office there at the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office. So not only that, and then of course the federal courthouse in El Paso was being managed by Patrick Crusius's brother's father-in-law, so a family member overseeing his case, and of course his brother, CPA working for Ernst and Young, with all of those conflicts of interest. Then you have the brother-in-law, Michael Mayella Jr., working in the DA's office under Montoya, under Jaime Esparza, with James Bonneau Montoya, and also working in the FBI field office, because, of course, they're all cozy together, with Melissa Mendez, right? George Torres, you know. And then, of course, he was in the Walmart cybersecurity during the time of the Walmart mass shooting. So you have Patrick Crusius's family member operating Walmart cybersecurity during the Walmart mass shooting. And you're like, where are those videos? Where I want to see those videos. And then, 6 years later, the DPS, who is compromised with Daniela Amalia Naragari, I hope I'm saying that name right, um, who has major, major, major conflicts of interest, y'all. And now the whole Lone Star, Operation Lone Star, has been compromised. And, you have the ties to Gustavo Sanchez, who's family members with Nandal Baim, who is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado, the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, Richard's command, and Nandal Baim and Gustavo Sanchez are all family members with Manny Chavira, who was illegally installed as the chief of police for the El Paso ISD, and the ISD is connected to now these other compromisers. And of course, you have the confirmation that there's tunnels under these schools and that are used for trafficking. So you have this El Paso being top to bottom compromised with cartel tied criminal trafficking enablers that also control contracts, right? They can control contracts, government contracts. So this power play by the Trump administration was not a choice. Okay, it was not a choice. It is a strategic power play, but it has to be done because you're talking about the front door of the United States being totally compromised. The front door of the United States being totally compromised and being controlled by foreign criminal network, right? And I want to say FTOs, foreign T, the big T, that are totally up to no good organizations controlling our front door into our country. So this is the duty of President Trump. It's his duty, and he's fulfilling it. And he's fulfilling it in a big way, $1.2 billion. So let's see how this is something he has to do. He has to deport those that are illegally in this country. Of course, he's starting with the criminals. That's what ICE has told us. It is very, very important. It's for the well being of those migrants because they have been, I'm telling you, 5 years of investigating this. They have been totally exploited. They have been used and abused. Uh, they are at, and everyone's like, well, they get a free phone, they get free this, they get. Why do they get that? Because they are being exploited, used, and abused, and hundreds of thousands of children that were taken were being trafficked through Fort Bliss, and now many of them are no longer alive. Many of them, most of them, are no longer alive. Hundreds of thousands of them. Okay, so you have millions of the migrants coming in, dangling a carrot in front of them and controlling this narrative to the people to you know to make the people think, okay, we're paying for their hotels, we're paying for their lodgings, we're paying for their food, we're paying for their phones, giving them backpacks, the cards, the gift cards, and all this stuff. So that can, for some people, that they accept that. For a lot of Americans, they're not very happy with that, especially when you have veterans that are homeless and everything. We're like, what about taking care of our own first? Uh, so you have this divide that it's causing in America. But the real, I think, the real problem is the exploitation of the migrants themselves. They don't even realize it that they are being, of course, are bringing in criminals to be criminals, right? To upset the society, but they're also bringing in people that are setting them up to be victims of crimes and to make them a criminal when they're not a criminal. They might be searching for a better life, but they're making them a criminal. How mean, how hard hearted is that? Because once they become a criminal, they're so susceptible for blackmail, they're so susceptible to create other crimes to cover up the crime. They can be exploited, and that's what we have seen. And you've seen the exploitation of the system, even right across the border with this whole bodies and USAID for these deceased migrants that are unidentified. They're unidentified, and so USA kicks in, and then they're just left there to pile up to rot while others take the money and go on vacation. It's just it's really it's just so despicable that President Trump's duty, any president of the United States duty, is to uh, create a staging ground. Of course, you have Fort Bliss there in order to address the corruption, the major corruption. Look at Representative Veronica Escobar. She is so up to no good, y'all. I mean, she absolutely facilitated the corruption with the medical examiner that interfered in all these cases, right? That is connected to purchase for this corpse trafficking, that might involve the human organ trafficking. She absolutely facilitated the ability for hundreds of thousands of children to be trafficked through Fort Bliss. She facilitated the corrupted contracts, what's going on in El Paso ISD, that have the tunnels that are underneath the schools that are along the border. I mean, look, there's schools that are right on the border and they have tunnels and they're being used, and we have that confirmed for trafficking. And of course, that's been in the news, and there's been like earthquakes. I think that those have been probably used to block some of those tunnels. It is absolutely El Paso from all the government organizations and the law enforcement and that has been compromised. And so it is the duty of President Trump to set up a staging ground, a federal military staging ground to address what's going on and secure the border. And, you know, you might have all these doubts because we don't trust anything anymore, right? We don't trust anything. I don't trust anything anymore. But I can tell you this, that I know that the Walmart mass shooting case, Richard's case, everything that's been happening, um, uh, uh, the whole Walmart mass shooting case and all of the media and everything that was so false. The number one fact that we found in all the evidence is that they were targeting President Trump. They were targeting President Trump. They were targeting his administration. They were targeting his policies. And then they were targeting his campaign. They interfered in the election. Now, you can deny that or whatever, because you might not like him. Whatever. The truth is that the evidence confirms that is what they were doing. And now you see, even with the Russia gate, with the bleach bit servers and all of that, that they went to the extremes to interfere with his administration, sabotage it, that they were using media to push out false narratives, that the policies did not show what they were saying, just like Ernest Christopher Grant was pushing out this white supremacist narrative, saying that Patrick Crusius did this very vile thing where, look, we just got DPS to release some video. There's no evidence. There's no evidence of what Ernest Christopher said that was so vile and vulgar. It clearly, and even the El Paso Police Department, it's not me, but everyone says what he said, he's a liar. He's a liar. And the problem with Ernest Christopher Grant is that he was the media sweetheart. So the media put that out to millions and millions of people to make them think that something happened that didn't happen, that was so vile, so vulgar, that it interfered in justice, in the case. And that vile and vulgar false information was like a sticker that they stuck on President Trump and his administration and his campaign to interfere with the election. And it was false. It was not right. And it was so vile and vulgar. And thank God he's been arrested. Ernest Christopher Grant has been arrested. And he was playing patty fingers with Chris Cuomo and Beto O'Rourke and Veronica Escobar and Governor Abbott. And, he was playing patty fingers with the media. They loved him. They loved him. And he is now he's been arrested. He had a criminal record to begin with. He had been arrested multiple times before that. They didn't report that. We were so misled on all of that. And President Trump had him arrested. Well, Secret Service arrested him at the White House because the media were trying to make him out to be a hero. And President Trump invited him up because Veronica Escobar, remember this with the Walmart mass shooting. When President Trump came down to El Paso to visit, she refused to meet with the President of the United States. And so she rather put out false narratives than meet with President Trump and hear it for herself. She rather put out false narratives than to meet with the President of the United States and hear the policies for herself and share the information of what was going on um, at the Walmart mass shooting and in Richard's case. And in Richard's case, don't forget that Richard's case came before the Walmart mass shooting case. This was all a diversion from the criminal trafficking audits, weapons trafficking audits that were going on before. And this was a diversion, the Walmart mass shooting. It was a diversion. It was something else. It was bloody. It was bloody. It was a bloody killing, and several multiple people were absolutely executed, targeted. Okay, and we need to get to the bottom of this. And one of the major ones that we have the video on is the German national, right? Everybody is precious, right? Everybody that died needs to be valued. And so the German national, Alexander Gerhard Hofmann, who we have a video of him laying there with half his head, um, that needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed, and there's hard evidence for that. And so we need the truth. We need intervention. And we need intervention in Richard's case. What did they do with his remains? We know that there was this corpse pipeline for funding for VA, IDS, Pablo, veterans benefits, death benefits, fraud, and also over the border for the migrant unidentified um, Jane Doe's and John Doe's fraud, um, piled up rotting bodies because they just took the money and went on vacation or whatever, bought themselves a car or whatever they were doing. They weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They were committing sacrilege of Corpus Christi, right? That's what they were doing. And so, this is $1.2 billion for this justice center, this accountability center. I think that's what this is. So, all the evidence shows that this is what is going on. And we will absolutely monitor it because that's a lot of taxpayers' money. And we don't really like uh, different camps on Fort Bliss, do we? We don't trust camps on Fort Bliss. I don't. But this is Trump's. He's under scrutiny all the time, and these are big players that have done this to El Paso, and I think he's squaring it away because he was the one being targeted. So was Richard, our son Richard Halliday, the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier who was reporting on the criminal trafficking, and also the witness, the huge witness, Glennon Oakley Jr. There's many more, like Asia Graham, and there's many, many more. But uh, that is, that's why there needs to be um, a staging ground, 60 acres, ICE and DOD. And this uh, staging ground contract was given to a company out of Virginia. So, not there in El Paso at all. So, we'll see um, what happens. And I think it's a clear message. It can be. It can be a huge, clear message to the cartel and the cartel allies and enablers and facilitators that justice is coming. Justice is coming. So this whole thing is going to end. So it's and we're getting um, other indicators that this is exactly what is happening. Okay. So when I'm at liberty to say more, I absolutely will. But this is absolutely a DOD, Department of State, ICE, They're all on this. They're all on this. And we can't trust the DPS, right? We can't trust Director Jose Sanchez. He's too busy having his frisky business, being compromised, okay? Uh, letting, not ruling by his head, let me tell you that. Not, thinking through what his duty is supposed to be. No, he was easily compromised by this very high stakes player. I think it's called a honey pot. He was honey potted. Oh, I got to get the right terminology. Is this like a honey pot trap? A honey pot trap? He's the top cop, the DPS director, Jose Sanchez, and he was easily honey pot trapped. Um, and that's another indicator that we need this 60-acre staging ground facility, not only to deport for their own sake, whether they are a major criminal or an undocumented criminal. They've been made a criminal by just being undocumented and being handed fake social security numbers and fake identities and all this stuff. Um, so some of them are really major criminals, long criminal records. Some of them have been made criminals by just letting them enter the country illegally. And so, for their own sake, they need to leave and they need to come back in vetted and the right way, so that they won't be blackmailed, so that they won't be extorted. Um, for coming in the country illegally. And we know that Lalani Hart has even said it in her confession that she has immigration problems and that she was being blackmailed for it, or not blackmailed, but controlled because of it. And look at facilitating the worst type of crimes against children. That's what it led to. Just a long criminal record, coming into the country with immigration problems, and then becoming a major, major criminal. That's what it led to. And so we need this 60-acre staging ground to deport these people. Some of them have left on their own. They were given $1,000 for a plane ticket to leave on their own, so that they can regroup and come into this country legally. And that's the way my mom did it. That's the way my grandfather did it. Um, that's the way my whole grandparents, all of them, that's the way they did it. They came in legally. I'm an of course, I was born in the United States, but my family is absolutely an immigrant family, and they came in legally. My mom learned how to speak English right there on White Sands Missile Range in El Paso, ironing fatigues for the soldiers, watching Guiding Light and General Hospital and those. That's how she learned English. She went to classes and learned um, what her duties were to be a citizen, what this country was all about, and she became a citizen while living on White Sands Missile Range. That's when she became a citizen. So, and my grandfather, all of them. Uh, you have to come in legally for your own family, for your own welfare, um, and to stop the additional crime that happens, snowballs into. So that's why we need it, but we also need it to stop the cartel infiltration and the enablers and the I think that Veronica Escobar is in a lot of trouble. I think those and others in El Paso are in big trouble for what they did. Like Bill Hicks, like Bob Moore, like, I don't want to name so many names, but you know who they are. James Montoya. I think that they're in real big trouble because everything that's happening right now is working towards accountability to securing the front door of the United States and holding those that committed these huge crimes and criminal trafficking crimes in line with the cartel, are in trouble. And from the plea deals, the information that the Trump administration has now gotten from El Mayo Zapata and also Gustavo El Chapo's son, um, to probably Ernest Christopher Grant. Uh, you know, I'm sure that he was talking about how that all happened. And yeah, so I think that Beto O'Rourke and all of them, I think they're in very big trouble for the crimes that they have committed. And clearly, they have committed huge crimes. Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, Leilani Hart needs to be arrested like yesterday. Yesterday, a year ago, ago, really 5 years ago, she needed to be arrested. Um, so she absolutely needs to be arrested, and Dallas Hart, and there's just a host of them that need to be arrested for what they've done and made El Pasoans suffer. You can say, oh, well, I haven't been really a victim of crime. Well, I think taxes, high taxes, the uh, keeping from the unseen. If they weren't doing what they were doing, El Paso would flourish. El Paso is an ancient city, and it's right there on the border, and Juarez would flourish, right? If you didn't have these criminals in control, it would flourish. It would be, you wouldn't have the water Nazis, you would have plenty of water, uh, and it would just flourish. It would just be so beautiful. There are old pictures talking about old books. Read these old books. What they have done is keep your families and your friends and keep Americans and uh, and those that live in Mexico from enjoying a much brighter uh, place to live. And I think now with accountability, we have a real chance of bringing that in. And President Trump calls it the golden age. The golden age. When you have free flowing water and cheap energy and low property taxes, they've charged property taxes are out of this roof for all their criminal activities. And so, and he knows that. So uh, the tariffs on Mexico are, woo, they are kicking them in the backside. Let me tell you that it's kicking them in the backside. And I don't know how long they can sustain it without negotiation. And the negotiation is, I'm sure, um, first he got the 29 cartel leaders that were extradited. And I'm sure that the identification of those bodies, those hundreds of bodies that were piled up rotting, two in uniform, well, multiple in uniform. And yeah, we want to know what's there. There's a there's a pretty big chance that Richard's remains are there, um, and we'll see. We'll see if President Trump can get us our son's remains back, get us accountability, give El Pasoans back their beautiful city in a true justice system and law enforcement system, give them back their schools, right? And also, that would give Juarez back uh, to the Mexicans too. It really would. So, uh, get rid of all of this criminal trafficking and put in real production with real jobs, real pride again and honor, all the virtues. And in my book, I would say that that has to be combined with the sacraments, because being a Christian, how shall we now live? The seven sacraments define that, how we shall now live. And, I don't see any other way we can have all the blessings God wants us to have without doing what He tells us to do, right? And those are the sacraments. So, thank you so much, everybody. This is late night. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Um, we just appreciate it so much, and we love you so much. Have a great Sunday, and I will be back on tomorrow, God willing.